Part 40. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 391. The Queen Mother was so angry that her face turned pale. Chu Qing Huang, you are so impatient to eliminate dissidents that you have to kill everyone from the princes to the ministers of Ziki before you stop, right? Chu Qing Huang frowned. Chu Xuanyi, send the Queen Mother back to the palace. Yes. Chu Qing Huang. The Queen Mother looked at her coldly. Do you think that if you kill Tiankuo, you will definitely be able to sit on the throne? Ziki has been declining for so many years because of the serious internal strife that led to the weakening of national strength. It has been unable to do what it wants for so many years. You still want to repeat the same mistakes? Do you know that foreign enemies are eyeing Ziki covetously? Only when the royal family is united and strong can they not give other countries a chance. You have made the court panic. The royal family and the civil and military officials are like a group of frightened birds. How can they concentrate on their political achievements and be loyal to the emperor? Is the Queen Mother righteously turning the tables? Chu Qing Huang sneered. King Xian ordered assassins to assassinate me, but it became that I wanted to eliminate dissidents. The Queen Mother is really good at eloquence and turning black into white. The Queen Mother looked ugly. Go back and have a rest. Chu Qing Huang took another memorial. I've been busy with government affairs recently and have no time to entertain the Queen Mother. Chu Xuanyi bowed and said in a very tough manner, please ask the Queen Mother to return to the palace. The Queen Mother took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. What will it take for your Majesty to let Tiankuo go? The Queen Mother is not qualified to negotiate with me. Chu Qing Huang looked up at her. You don't have enough bargaining chips. The Queen Mother choked and her face turned pale. She had to lower her posture. The Princess of Xian just gave birth to a daughter. Your Majesty can bear to let the child lose her father as soon as she was born. Chu Qing Huang had nothing to be reluctant about. Whether the King of Xian lives or dies depends on the Queen Mother. Chu Qing Huang said, the Queen Mother should be obedient and stop disturbing me. I may consider sparing his life, otherwise I will have someone send him off tomorrow. Even if he is spared, he will be imprisoned in the heavenly prison for life, and don't even think about getting freedom. The Queen Mother was pinched in the vitals, her face was pale and blue, and she finally left in a huff. At the beginning of July, Fu Wei presented a secret report. Chu Qing Huang unfolded it and took a look. The secret report described the relationship between Chu Tianling and Wei Heng, the Prince of Yan State. She frowned and stared at the handwriting on the secret report for a moment, and raised her eyebrows slightly. Is this from Fu Kang? Yes. Sure enough. Chu Qing Huang's eyes fell on the handwriting that was obviously improved. She thought to herself that it had been almost a year since she became a disciple last year. I wonder how Fu Kang has learned his skills. After a moment of silence, she asked, what's going on in Prince Ling's mansion recently? Since Prince Xian was thrown into prison, Prince Ling has been very quiet. Fu Wei replied respectfully. Prince Yan wrote him 2 letters. He burned the first one after reading it, and burned the second one without reading it, and did not reply to either. Chu Qing Huang said, what did the letter say? The first one said the intelligence was wrong, and the second one said using rumors. The Prince of Yan sent a secret letter thousands of miles away, thinking that he was unnoticed, but he didn't know that both letters were intercepted by the Dark Pavilion. After the Dark Pavilion Shadow Guard read them, they were resealed with wax and passed to Prince Ling as usual. Chu Qing Huang hummed, looked at the handwriting on the paper with a little appreciation, and objectively evaluated it. It was indeed well written. The pen strokes were vigorous and powerful, and she could see some of her father's character. It seems that Fu Kang really thinks that his master's handwriting is the best, and he has been copying and practicing, and he has been improving. I have another letter here. Fu Wei took out a sealed letter from his sleeve and respectfully presented it to the imperial desk. This is a letter from the commander to your Majesty. According to the rules, It should be tested for poison before being presented to your Majesty, but the letter needs to be opened for the test. I hope your Majesty will allow it. Chu Qing Huang looked at the letter in his hand. No need to test it, just present it. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 392. Master's Personal Letter. One day without seeing you feels like 3 years. I haven't seen you for 400 years. I miss you so much that I can't sleep. The days of learning skills passed quickly, but every night when I went to bed, I felt that time was long and hard to bear. Master must miss me too. If I sneak down the mountain to see you and then sneak back, Master won't be angry, right? In the lower right corner of the letter, there were 2 small words Lan Yu. Chu Qing Huang raised her lips slightly and stared at the few words on the letter over and over again. It was written in a proper manner, but the length was too short and the words and sentences were a bit awkward. He wanted to show off his literary talent like a scholar, but he was troubled by his limited knowledge. She could even imagine him sitting at the desk, frowning and thinking hard. Tisk. Go down the mountain secretly? Did he think that he had the skill of splitting himself and could avoid being discovered by his father within a few days after leaving Canyon Mountain? Or did he have some misunderstanding about the word secretly? Chu Qing Huang waved his hand to dismiss Fu Wei, stood up and walked to the window to sit on the brocade couch. His eyes fell on the letter. His expression was obviously much more relaxed. Yuan Bao, who was standing aside, couldn't help but be curious. Who wrote this letter? His Majesty seemed to be in a good mood. Could it be a sweetheart? Yuan Bao thought. Before His Majesty ascended the throne, there were indeed several beautiful maids in the backyard, but after ascending the throne, unexpectedly, none of them were canonized. Among those maids, I don't know which one is the man in His Majesty's heart. He had seen Wen Banjian, a handsome man, gentle as jade. He had also seen Hong Yu Gongzi, who was as beautiful as a fairy boy, lively and cute, and really matched with His Majesty, and could make His Majesty happy. I have never seen that Master Shen and Master Qi. I don't know what they look like. His Majesty has a very good eye for people, and those 2 masters should also be outstanding. In fact, if there were a few more handsome men in the harem, it would be joyful. It would be too lonely if there were not enough people. Moreover, he had not seen many men competing for favor. He wondered if it was the same as the concubines before the emperor. But too many people is not good either. When there are too many people, there will be more people with ulterior motives. In the past, concubines were trembling with fear when they were pregnant. There were more than one unborn prince and princess in the royal family. But the situation of Her Majesty is different. Who dares to have a crooked mind when Her Majesty is pregnant? Yuan Bao was so absorbed in his thoughts that he did not notice that Chu Qing Huang turned her head to look at him with a strange look. He even thought about how Her Majesty would be given a title if she had a harem in the future. If the standard is the queen, then the legal husband is called Zhenjun. And then the 4 husbands below are called Gijun, Shujun, Xianjun, and Dijun? It sounds weird. Chu Qing Huang carefully folded the letter and said calmly, Yuan Bao. Yuan Bao was startled and came back to his senses in an instant. He knelt on the ground in a panic. Your Majesty, I'm here. Chu Qing Huang looked at him silently, and wanted to ask him, is it so interesting for men to compete for favor? However, in order not to scare him, Chu Qing Huang suppressed this idea and stood up and said calmly, I'm going out for a walk. Going out for a walk? Yuan Bao was slightly stunned. Your servant will serve you personally. Chu Qing Huang hummed and walked out. Yuan Bao hurriedly got up and followed, thinking to himself, Your Majesty is going to the Imperial Garden? Should he arrange a few more people to follow? But there doesn't need to be too many people. Minjiao and Jinlan followed, and there was also Commander Chu to protect him. There were people serving and people protecting him. If there were more people, His Majesty would be unhappy. But Yuanbao didn't expect that the walk that Her Majesty said was not to go to the imperial garden, but to go out of the palace for a walk. Chu Qinghuang went back to the princess's mansion first. The guards at the princess's mansion were still there, as were the housekeepers. Lu Jun and most of the guards were placed in the imperial guards, leaving only a few people on duty at the princess's mansion. Chu Qinghuang returned to Dongshang Pavilion and changed into a black men's light robe, which was neat and free, clean and refreshing. It was hot in July, and it was already evening. When the sun set, many dignitaries and noble ladies came out to stroll around. Many ladies and young ladies gathered in the ready-made clothing shops, jewelry shops, and rouge and powder shops. There were mostly men in places like the Four Treasures of the Study and the Book Pavilion. Chu Qinghuang was taller than an ordinary girl. At this time, she was wearing men's clothes and holding a folding fan. She looked like a nobleman strolling in the garden. Her black hair was tied up high, clean and refreshing, neat and capable, and she looked really more delicate and indistinguishable. Her dazzling face naturally attracted many ladies and girls to look back along the way, and even young men couldn't help but take a second look. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 393. Yuan Bao followed behind tremblingly, for fear of being recognized. Your Majesty, Master, many people have seen you in the capital. What if someone recognizes you and harbors ill intentions? And even if you don't recognize His Majesty, you will definitely recognize Chu Xuanyi who is following you. These princes are not good at all. If someone makes a desperate move, I also think it's too risky. Chu Xuanyi looked around and listened in all directions, and his low voice sounded a bit wary. Your Majesty's status is not as good as before, so he should bring more people with him when he is out of the palace. The more people there are, the more conspicuous we are. Besides, we need to keep a low profile when conducting private visits to investigate public sentiment. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, the weather is hot, there are few people wandering around on the streets, and this is not an inner city where officials gather, so there is no need to be so nervous. Chu Xuanyi then stopped talking. His Majesty is not a person who is afraid of trouble, and naturally he will not care about the so-called potential dangers. Moreover, if you really dare to assassinate the emperor in broad daylight, it is tantamount to seeking death. Let's go sit in a brothel. Chu Qinghuang walked outside a brothel and looked up. Lanyu Tower? The name is good. Yuanbao was shocked. Visiting a brothel? It was getting dark now, so Chu Qinghuang turned around and ordered, Minjiao, Jinlan, you two go for a walk first. If you don't see us coming out in half an hour, you can go back to the palace on your own. Yes. Chu Qinghuang walked in with Yuan Bao and Chu Xuanyi. Is this your first time here as a distinguished guest? You look very nervous. The old madam who greeted him enthusiastically saw Chu Qinghuang and Chu Xuanyi were so noble, and his face burst into laughter. Is there a girl you fall in love with? The Warren girl from Lanyu Tower. It's unlucky that this distinguished guest has come. The old bustard suddenly showed a look of embarrassment on his face. Miss Lanyu has been ordered tonight and is currently playing music for the distinguished guest in room No. 1. Lanyu Lu, Lanyu girl. Named after the top Warren, or are the top girls named Lanyu? In that case, let's arrange for us to go to room number 2. Tianzi. Chu Qinghuang handed her a banknote of 100 taels in denomination and said in a calm tone, give me 2 young children, younger and more delicate, no other requirements. Upon hearing this, the madam nodded quickly, okay, I will make arrangements for you. If a customer wants a stunning young girl who is proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, it is really difficult to arrange it. After all, the number one with stunning appearance and outstanding talents must be reserved for the auction for the first time, and the one with the highest price will get it. But as long as they're younger and more delicate, that's totally fine. As for girls of 13 or 14, there are a lot of them in the building. The madam quickly ordered the maid to lead Chu Qinghuang and the others to the third floor. Chu Xuanyi followed behind him without saying a word, while Yuan Bao lowered his head and did not dare to say a word. He was a eunuch, and he was still young. Without a beard, his identity would not be revealed, but when he spoke, his voice would reveal his identity. He never expected that Her Majesty the Queen would visit the brothel in a grand manner, accompanied by a eunuch and a guard commander. If the ministers in the court found out, would they be sprayed to death with spittle? In the lobby on the first floor, beauties are in full bloom, with different shapes and sizes. But when you go to the third floor, the smell of makeup is much lighter. The environment is elegant and the atmosphere is cleaner. Under the guidance of the maid, we entered the elegant room at Tianzi number 2 and sat down. Not long after, two pretty little girls knocked on the door and came in. One was holding a chin and the other was holding a pipa. After entering, they knelt down in a polite manner. Salute to distinguished guests. Then, the tea maid came in to add tea to the distinguished guests, and the incense maid was responsible for incense. Everything was done with great care, so that the distinguished guests could enjoy treatment comparable to that of a queen in the palace. Chu Qinghuang just watched quietly, secretly thinking that indeed people with money and status like to come here. Seeing these girls is so pleasing to the eye. The aroma of tea and agar would linger in the room. Chu Qinghuang leaned in front of the screen and said casually, "You can come and visit more when you have nothing to do. This is really a good place to enjoy life." Chu Xuanyi said nothing. "I'm curious who booked room number 1 in Tianzi." Chu Qinghuang looked at the window, then turned to look at the two girls who were still kneeling on the ground. "Is room number 1 in Tianzi next door?" The little girls nodded in unison. "It's literally next door. However, in order not to reveal the privacy of distinguished guests, the sound insulation effect of each private room is very good. After closing the door, whether it is listening to music, flirting, or having secret conversations, it is ensured that no one will be heard. Of course, this kind of attack can only protect against ordinary people. It is not a problem at all for Chu Qinghuang. Just play a song," she said, "I'll go inside and rest for a while." As he spoke, he stood up and walked around the screen into the inner room. There was also a small window in the inner room. While the music of the piano and pipa played, Chu Qinghuang jumped out of the window neatly. His slender body jumped lightly and quickly from room 2 to room 1, his fingers silently moving. Holding the outer hollow window corner, she lowered her head and looked down. Her feet were dangling in the air, and she could clearly see the scene in the alley. There was a narrow alley under the back window, and most of the time no one was walking around. As long as you don't make any noise, no one will notice someone hanging outside the window on the third floor. Chu Qinghuang stepped on the wall with her toes, used her strength to jump, and was already halfway hanging on the window. The muffled chatter in room 1 could be heard. "Prince Ling has been quiet recently, and I haven't responded to my letters to him. What's going on? It should be that King Xian's incident scared him." A disdainful sneer sounded, as timid as a mouse. "Someone must cooperate with our current plan, otherwise. Wouldn't it be better to kill Chu Qinghuang directly?" The young man's voice was sinister and murderous. "If she's alive, it means variables. As long as she's dead, our plan will be foolproof. Miss Lan Yu, what do you think? Are you sure? Miss Lan Yu?" Chu Qinghuang raised her eyebrows and gently poked a hole in the inner window paper with her fingers. The hole was not small. She leaned forward to check and saw a beautiful face through the hole in the window. But this face. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 394. I'm 90% sure Lan Yu's voice was neutral, not as delicate as that of an ordinary girl, but not so rough that it would make people suspicious. But this is extremely risky. My rule is to pay half of the commission first. Pay half first, the young man gritted his teeth. No. Chu Qing Huang heard that this person was Wei Hong, who had gone to Dongling before, and the person sitting with him was naturally the northern frontier emperor Duan Muyu. Lan Yu's tone was steady and calm. Young master may not understand the rules of the assassin's business. When we take on a business, we pay half first and pay the other half after the business is completed. What if the task cannot be completed? I can only guarantee to complete the task as much as possible, but if there is a chance, Lan Yu is willing to leave the assassin's business from now on and retire to Xiadao. Lan Yu said calmly, this is also the rule. Xiadao retire? Wei Hong said coldly, even if you Xiadao retired, didn't you still make 3 million taels of silver for nothing? If you don't believe me, you can cancel this deal at any time. Lan Yu's voice became 3 points colder. I don't like to force others. Wei Hong was silent for a moment after hearing this. His expression was uncertain, and he seemed to be in a dilemma. But it's not difficult to understand. Yangguo is just a small country with limited national strength. He is just a prince. It's impossible for him to take out 3 million taels of silver at once. Not to mention him, even if it is as rich and powerful as Dongling, the silver is all from the national treasury. The emperor's brother can't take out so much silver from his private treasury at once. So everything Wei Hong does now is actually decided by the emperor of Beijiang. Forget it, Duan Muyu said. His tone was heavy. For now we can only trust Miss Lan Yu, there is no other way. Wei Hong frowned, but what if dash? No, what if? Duan Muyu interrupted him, act according to the plan. Wei Hong had to nod. There was a 7-stringed zither in front of Lan Yu, and he looked like he was about to play it, but his hands never touched the strings. After the business was over, he raised his eyes slightly and looked towards the window where Chu Qing Huang was. Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows slightly, left the window, turned around and returned to his room number 2 neatly. After climbing through the window and straightening her clothes, Chu Qing Huang walked out of the inner room. As the pleasant piano music ended, she brushed her clothes and sat down. You played well. What is Miss Lan Yu from your Lan Yu pavilion best at? The two girls were uneasy and lowered their heads to reply. Miss Lan Yu is good at piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Chu Qing Huang hummed, then let her come and play a song for me. As he said, he took out a stack of silver notes and put them on the tea table in front of him. Tell your mother that this young master will pay 1,000 taels tonight and let Lan Yu accompany you for 2 hours. The two girls were uneasy, and one of them said, reporting to the young master, Miss Lan Yu has a guest tonight. Which guest paid more than me? Chu Qing Huang interrupted her dissatisfiedly. If not, let Miss Lan Yu come over immediately. If they pay more, I can add more. The little girl was indeed young and had little experience in dealing with guests. At this time, she was shocked by Chu Qing Huang's momentum. Her face turned pale, and she retreated in fear. After a while, the madam came. Sir, I want to see Miss Lan Yu, Chu Qing Huang said. Let her come now. The madam was embarrassed. Lan Yu has guests tonight. Hasn't it been said just now? You should have a way to solve this problem. Chu Qing Huang's voice was light, and there was no emotion on her face. I'll give you an incense stick of time. The madam's face changed slightly. Then, I'll go ask, sir, wait a moment. Wait. Chu Qing Huang stopped her and motioned her to take the banknotes on the tea table. I believe that with these banknotes, Miss Lan Yu will be very willing to come. As a madam, she has to see countless people every day, and she has long trained her eyes to be sharp. She saw at a glance that Chu Qing Huang was a person of extraordinary status, either a royal family or a noble, so she naturally did not dare to offend him. Yes, the madam stepped forward to take the banknotes, smiling humbly. I will go and ask the sir right away. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 395. Chu Xuanyi sat aside and remained silent. Yuan Bao also stood in fear, secretly thinking that this was his first time in a brothel, and his first time seeing what it was like for men to compete for courtesans. In the past, I had only heard that the young master from an aristocratic family would spend huge sums of money or even fight with any girl he liked. He could actually see such a scene today. Moreover, it is still His Majesty who is vying for the courtesan. The most important thing is that the distinguished guest who spends a lot of money is also a girl. Sir, the old madam came back quickly, with a respectful and wry smile on his face. The guests in room 1 of Tianzi said, that they ordered Miss Lan Yu first. Even if you are rich and powerful, sir, you should abide by the first come, first served rule. Rule. What if I don't comply? Chu Qinghuang smiled coldly. Tell them that I am the son of Prince Rong. If they dare to fight with me, I will make them suffer. Young master of Prince Rong's mansion? The face of the old bustard changed, and he smiled quickly. Dare I ask which young master of Prince Rong's residence you are? Why are you asking so many questions? Yes, the madam bowed quickly and left with a particularly respectful attitude. I'll ask again. With that said, he withdrew again. Chu Xuanyi looked at her silently, and Yuan Bao also glanced at His Majesty secretly. In order to compete for Anwaran, report your identity as the son of Prince Rong. Your Majesty's behavior doesn't seem right. What are you looking at me for? Chu Qinghuang picked up the wine cup and sipped the tea carelessly. The 3 young masters of Prince Rong's mansion rarely visit brothels, and I think the madam has never seen them. So don't worry about being cheated. Chu Xuanyi was silent for a moment. Xuanyi used to come here often. Chu Qinghuang said, you're not coming this year. He is in the military camp now and has no chance to come. Chu Xuanyi said, Xianyu has changed a lot from before. After all, I should thank His Majesty. Otherwise, with the extent to which his mother dotes on her son, Chu Xuanyu will become a trouble-making prodigal sooner or later. It doesn't matter. Chu Qinghuang didn't care. The purpose of reporting to Prince Rong's mansion is to make the people next door a little scrupulous and not dare to cause trouble. As for whether the madam will be suspicious, it doesn't matter. Strictly speaking, Chu Qinghuang is young. Even if he dresses like a nobleman in men's clothing, he still looks like a young man of 16 or 17 years old, and he is still a young man in his prime. As we all know, Chu Xuanyi, the eldest son of Prince Rong's palace, is 20 years old. At the age of 5 or 6, the second son Chu Suans was also at the same age this year. After a moment of reflection, he realized that the identity she reported was false. But as she said, that's not important. At least tonight, the madam doesn't dare to blatantly check the authenticity. After repeated hesitations, the 2 guests in room 1 next door finally gave in to Lan Yu. They came to Ziki quietly and had no intention of exposing their identities. If there was a commotion because of Anwaran tonight, it would be more than worth the loss. Instead, the business has been negotiated and plans have been drawn up. The rest can only wait. So Lan Yu stood up and walked out of room 1, took small steps to reach room 2 in Tianzi, knocked on the door gently and walked in, holding an ebony piano in her hand. Chu Xuanyi raised his eyes slightly, and saw a beautiful face, a long flowing cloud water satin skirt that outlined a slender figure, and splendid eyebrows. As his eyes swept past, Chu Xuanyi couldn't help but wonder, all the girls in Lanyulu have your own piano? This thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately discovered that the girl holding the moon seemed a bit tall. Although she was dressed as a woman, she was still too tall compared to ordinary women, and even compared to men. Yuan Bao. Chu Xuanyi said out of nowhere, go and help Miss Lanyu pick up the piano. Yuan Bao was stunned, not expecting Mr. Chu to order him, but he quickly said oh and walked over to help Lanyu pick up the piano. As he got closer, Chu Xuanyi became more and more sure that this girl Lanyu was abnormally tall. actually half a head taller than Yuan Bao. The slave family has met the young master. Lan Yu put the piano in front of her, knelt down and saluted meekly. Young master is safe. Chu Xuanyi's eyebrows were slightly dark, and his voice was not as soft and agile as a woman's. Chu Qinghuang sat behind the case, propped up her chin, and said casually, "Come closer." "Yes." Lan Yu stood up and walked a few steps forward, walked directly to the side of the pearwood table in front of Chu Qinghuang, knelt down, and said with lowered eyebrows and eyes, "Young master." Chu Xuanyi frowned. They were too close. If this person has evil intentions. "Your name is Lan Yu." Chu Qinghuang stretched out her hand to hook Lan Yu's chin and looked at her carefully. "You have a good appearance." Lan Yu meekly raised her chin, her eyes flashed across Chu Qinghuang's face, and she suppressed the emotion in her eyes. "Thank you, master. Can you play such a tune? My slave knows everything." "Really?" Chu Qinghuang raised her lips. "You are quite confident. How about singing Phoenix Seeking Phoenix?" Yuan Bao's brows were tangled, his expression getting weirder and weirder. "Does your majesty think that the few court ladies in the backyard are not gentle enough, and even the courtesan of the brothel has taken a liking to them?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 396. Compared with Yuan Bao's entanglement, Chu Xuanyi was secretly on guard. If this girl holding the moon was a master with evil intentions, he must make sure to be a step faster when the other party takes action to prevent her from being detrimental to His Majesty. The atmosphere in the private room was a bit subtle. Lan Yu's too docile attitude is suspicious. Even if she is a promiscuous woman, courtesans in brothels have always been aloof and aloof. Not only do they have top-notch looks, but they also have outstanding talents. How many customers have spent a lot of money just for the beauty's smile? They have the confidence to be noble and reserved. Therefore, as the leader of Lan Yu Pavilion, Lan Yu's attitude at this time is really puzzling. Lan Yu should say, "The slave family obeys the order. Just play it to me." "Yes." Chu Xuanyi heard the meaning of her words and his expression changed slightly. "Young master. You guys go out first." Chu Xuanyi was worried. It's too dangerous for the young master to stay here alone. "It doesn't matter," Chu Qinghuang said calmly. "I know Miss Lan Yu." "No." Hearing this, Chu Xuanyi couldn't help but start looking at Lan Yu again. Tall. The sound is neutral. Although he dresses like a woman, he knows that there is a skill in this world called the art of disguise. So, Lan Yu is one of her backyard attendants. With this thought flashing through his mind, Chu Xuanyi hesitated for a moment, stood up and left. Naturally, Yuan Bao could only follow and exit. This face is really well dressed. You can't tell it's a man at all. Chu Qinghuang reached out and touched his face. "When did you arrive?" Fuekang looked at Chu Qinghuang for a moment. "Last night." "It's pretty well hidden. This subordinate wants to give the master a surprise." Fuekang raised his lips. "Besides, I have a mission, so I would like to ask the master to forgive me." "When did Duanmu Yu and Wei Hong arrive?" "At about the same time as my subordinates. They stayed in Dongling for more than half a month. They didn't see their master at the emperor's birthday banquet. They thought he didn't show up on purpose. They waited for more than half a month before they learned that the master had returned." Fufu Kang explained. "The news of their arrival in Ziki was also concealed by my subordinates from Fu Wei." Chu Qinghuang hummed, imagining their mood at that time. "Do they want to kill me?" "Yes." Fuekang nodded, keeping his eyes on Chu Qinghuang's face, as if he couldn't get enough of it. "Duanmu Yu wants Wei Hong to resume his status as the fifth prince of 11 Qi, but the prerequisite is that the master must be eliminated first. If the master is assassinated, Ziki will instantly fall into civil strife for the throne. With the support of the troops from northern Xinjiang, it is natural for Wei Hong to resume his status as the fifth prince, and he can even seize the throne directly. Chu Qinghuang sneered, "The plan is good." Fukang said, "Once Wei Hong becomes the new emperor of Ziki, Ziki will fall under the control of northern Xinjiang." Chu Qinghuang nodded casually. Wei Hong himself has good abilities, but the Yan state is too weak and is no match for northern Xinjiang. Even if Wei Hong is lucky enough to become the emperor of the Western Qi dynasty, no one in the court will support him. He can only rely on northern Xinjiang. Fukang, he said, Bei Xinjiang is very ambitious, so he pursued his master from Dongling to Ziki without giving up. Chu Qinghuang clicked his tongue. Fukang, where do you think Duanwu got so much confidence that he thought he could plot Ziki? The royal family of northern Xinjiang has always had great ambitions. This is something inherited in their bones, and it has nothing to do with ability. Fukang said, if Dongling hadn't been strong in recent years, northern Xinjiang would have raised troops to fight, making the people miserable. Northern Xinjiang is warlike, and emperors of all dynasties have the ambition to annex the world. No matter whether they can succeed or not, they cannot stop their unrealistic delusions. Chu Qinghuang understood, so you accepted the mission and prepared to assassinate me. Fukang pursed his lips, by accepting this task, my subordinate can ensure that he will not find anyone else, and he can also make money. This is called cheating money. Fukang felt guilty. Soldiers are deceitful. They all want to assassinate their master, so why does it matter if my subordinates cheat them for a little money? One of them is willing to fight, and the other is willing to suffer, and the subordinates don't use knives to force them to give money. Yes, that makes sense. Chu Qinghuang nodded. What is the plan? The master's birthday banquet is coming soon. At that time, the girl Lan Yu will enter the palace to perform a dance for the master. During the dance, she will find an opportunity to assassinate him. There has never been a brothel girl to perform at a banquet in the palace. How can Lan Yu enter the palace? Originally they wanted King Ling to be responsible for the arrangements, but their letters to King Ling in the past few days have not received any response. The final plan is that if they can't arrange for Lan Yu to enter the palace, they will let me sneak into the palace dancers. Fukang said, I will figure out this plan myself, they are not responsible for the arrangements. When Chu Qinghuang heard this, he raised his eyebrows slightly. What are you going to do? Use a beauty trick. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 397. No matter what we try, they can't control it. Fukang said, his eyes became hot. If the master likes it, my subordinates are willing to use a beauty trick. Chu Qinghuang sneered, the beauty trap doesn't work on me. Fukang pursed his lips. But if you are the one who uses the beauty trick, maybe you can actually succeed. Chu Qinghuang said, and couldn't help pinching his face again. The disguise skill is good, and you can look good when you pretend to be a beauty. He is just a little tall, but Chu Xuanyi could tell at a glance that something was wrong. Fukang frowned when he heard this. I will pay attention to it in the future. Why pay attention? Chu Qinghuang raised an eyebrow. When you dress up as a beauty, is it possible that you can cut off some of your body? It seems not possible. Fukang was confused. Master, what do you think we should do? What can I do? Chu Qinghuang leaned on the brocade couch and asked leisurely, how much is my life worth? Fukang was stunned for a moment, then cleared his throat in embarrassment. They are too poor, and they are only willing to pay 6 million taels at most. It's really not much. Shabby. Chu Qinghuang frowned. Whose life is the most valuable on the killer list? Fuekang was silent for a moment. This question feels a bit dangerous for some reason. However, he still answered truthfully, Master's life is the most valuable. During the hottest period of the year, northern Xinjiang paid 15 million taels, which was 2 years' tax revenue from the northern Xinjiang treasury. This shows how strong their determination is to get rid of Master. However, no one has dared to take this business for so many years. Juxiao Pavilion's power spreads all over the world. 78 out of 10 masters in the world come from Juxiao Pavilion, and the killers are not fools. Their sense of smell is more sensitive than ordinary people, and they know who can and cannot be provoked. Be clearer about what money can be made and what money cannot be made. Therefore, even if the price increases several times, their wishes are destined to fail. The second is senior brother, worth 10 million taels, Fuekang said. After the master abdicated, the northern Xinjiang royal family thought that an opportunity had come, and secretly used money to buy lives, hoping to cause chaos in Dongling. When they took this, there are quite a few people doing business, and all of them are top-ranked masters on the killer list. That year, the killer list fell the fastest. Although Xian Yuanhao received the true inheritance from his father, he was raised according to imperial standards from birth. He never went to the battlefield and stayed firmly in the palace, so his reputation was not as great as that of his father. Moreover, when he first came to the throne, he was only a boy of 16 or 17 years old. In the eyes of some experts, the young emperor was naturally easy to deal with. Unexpectedly, all the experts who went on missions died. So in recent years, not only has the killer list declined a lot, but the royal family of northern Xinjiang, which has always been restless, has also become quieter. When Beijiang spent money to buy the lives of my father and brother, you weren't even born yet. Chu Qinghuang raised an eyebrow. Fuekang nodded, my subordinate was probably still young at that time, but these things can be found out. Chu Qinghuang hummed and raised his hand, play me a piece of music. Yes, Fuekang was about to retreat when he suddenly remembered something and raised his eyes silently, Master's birthday is in 10 days. Yet Chu Qinghuang looked at him, so. After this birthday, your Majesty will be 17 years old. Chu Qinghuang nodded lightly, I remember correctly. This subordinate is 2 years older than the master. Fuekang narrowed his eyes, men with weak crowns should tie their hair. Chu Qinghuang thought for a while, the ceremony of weak crown should be presided over by the elders. When is your birthday? Fuekang shook his head, I don't know, my subordinate didn't celebrate his birthday. If you are just a shadow guard, then your birth date may still need to be checked, but now that it is confirmed that your original identity is the Prince of Yangguo, this problem will be easier to handle. Fuekang looked at her silently and asked for a moment, the birth date of Prince Wei Hong of Yan Kingdom is recorded as July. The same month as me. Chu Qinghuang was surprised. Yes. Chu Qinghuang thought thoughtfully, so you won't be crowned champion next July. Fuekang nodded. Work hard. Chu Qinghuang patted his head, try to leave before the crown is lifted, so that you can come back to me early. At this point, she asked casually, how high has the number of days in the ledger increased? The increase has been slow during this period, and the total is 6 years. Fuekang said melancholy, Master said that if this task is completed well, 1 year can be reduced. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows, what mission? Kill Wei Hong and take back the identity of the Prince of Yangguo. Chu Qinghuang was silent for a while, Father, are you letting off steam? How difficult is this task for Fuekang? Fuekang thought for a while, I think Master's intention should be more than that. Otherwise, he would also feel that this task is too easy. Yes, you have learned to figure out the Master's meaning. Chu Qinghuang nodded slowly, you can teach me. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 398. The two hadn't seen each other for half a year and seemed to have endless topics to talk about. No matter it's business or leisure, just talk about whatever comes to mind. It seems like just this can make people feel good. Half an hour later, the chat came to an end, and Fu Kang stood up and played Phoenix Seeking Phoenix for Chu Qing Huang. Chu Xuanyi stood outside the door, staring at the door of Tianzi number 1 room. He couldn't help but think in his heart, His Majesty just climbed out the window and went out, and then ordered Miss Lan Yu, so it was the room number 1 that she went to inquire about. Movement. What is the identity of the guest in Tianzi room number 1? In addition to beauty, brothels are often places where status and financial resources are displayed. Those who can enter Tianzi number 1 room are definitely rich or noble. They ordered Lan Yu, but they gave up Lan Yu so easily. No matter how you look at it, this is not the reaction that a normal guest should have. They didn't even go to room 2 to see who the guest was, unless they knew the identity of the guest in room 2, or their own identity was shady, no dare to show up. Chu Xuanyi frowned slightly, turned around and walked towards room 1 of Tianzi. Master Shizi Yuanbao's face changed slightly. What are you doing? Chu Xuanyi looked at him silently, not knowing what he thought of, turned around and walked back, raised his hand and knocked lightly on the door, then pushed the door open and entered. The faint sound of the piano implies emotion. Chu Qing Huang raised his eyes and looked over. Chu Xuanyi walked over and knelt down in front of the case. I suspect that the guest in room number 1 Tianzi has a suspicious identity. Chu Qing Huang was silent for a moment, nodded and said, I know their identities. Chu Xuanyi was stunned. You know? He turned his head and glanced at Lan Yu, who was playing the piano with enlightenment, frowned slightly, and nodded, yes. Then he stood up and left, but saw Chu Qing Huang also put down the teacup and stood up. Go back. The sound of the piano stops. Fu Kang looked up at her. Are you going back now? It's not safe to be out for too long, Chu Qing Huang said. There are still a lot of papers in the royal study that have not been approved. Fu Kang understands. Miss Lan Yu is doing well. I'll tell you, madam, later that I'll take care of Lan Yu tonight. No one is allowed to order her again. Chu Qing Huang walked over and touched his face. It's too hard to perform as a performer every day. Have a good rest tonight and don't have to deal with anyone. Chu Xuanyi was silent. It is not an exaggeration to say that the leading courtesan in the brothel makes a lot of money every day. Moreover, just playing 2 piano pieces can make customers spend a lot of money. Is this called hard work? The monthly salary of the third-rank ministers in the DPRK and China is not that much. Yuan Bao had the same idea. However, the focus of his thoughts is different from that of Chu Xuanyi. What he is struggling with is that His Majesty is not really interested in beauties, right? In the past, ministers had repeatedly appealed to His Majesty to fill the harem, but His Majesty remained unmoved. However, tonight he is so gentle and considerate to an courtesan, which is really shocking. There are men in the world who have their sleeves cut off, but I haven't heard of any women who also like women. Yuan Bao stared at Miss Lan Yu. She was beautiful, but she was still a promiscuous woman. Why did His Majesty look at her differently? Chu Qing Huang ignored everyone's thoughts, left Lan Yu pavilion, and headed back to the palace. Not long after, Lan Yu also went back to the house and changed her clothes, took off her makeup, took off all the hairpins on her head, combed her dark hair and tied it up, and put on black clothes after cleansing her face. After taking care of it, he looked like a strong and stern young warrior, without any trace of femininity or grace. He looked in the mirror to make sure there was nothing missing, turned around and walked to the back window, opened the window and jumped out, quickly disappearing into the night. In room 1, Duan Muyu frowned slightly. Has the guest in room 2 left? It seems so. Have they been identified? The old bastard said he was the prince's son. After they left Lan Yu, they went to the direction of the inner city. Prince's mansion, Duan Muyu frowned. Which prince's mansion? The older generation of princes in Ziki is only Prince Rong, and the younger generation is Prince Ling, but Prince Ling has not yet given birth to a son who can visit a brothel. Wei Hung said coldly, I heard that the youngest son of Prince Rong's mansion is a dandy. If nothing unexpected happens, it should be him. Duan Wu said nothing. A dandy is not worthy of his attention. As long as the task of assassinating Chu Qinghuang can be completed, looking at Ziki, there will no longer be anyone who can compete with northern Xinjiang. Those good-for-nothing princes are useless, and Ziki doesn't have them all at his fingertips. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 399. Yuan Bao was very nervous all the way, and finally he breathed a sigh of relief after returning to the palace. In the past, people always said that serving the emperor is like serving a tiger, and his words were not taken seriously, but he never really understood the meaning of the sentence. However, when good luck suddenly fell on his head, he was trembling with fear, fearing that Her Majesty would suddenly get angry one day and twist his head off with a whip. Later, through getting along with each other, he found that Her Majesty was not as difficult to serve as rumored, and she would not lose her temper, let alone beat or kill people. Yuan Bao felt that he was lucky, and gradually he felt at ease. However, tonight he realized that the phrase serving the emperor is like serving a tiger does not mean that His Majesty is a tiger, but that as a person who serves His Majesty closely, he may face emergencies at any time and anywhere. If His Majesty wants to do something on a whim, the people around him have to be nervous and dare not say much. It's too frustrating. Chu Qinghuang walked into the imperial study and found that Wen Zhan and Yun Hung had already started working behind the desk. Seeing His Majesty coming, they stood up and saluted. You two should sort out the things on hand and go back to rest first, Chu Qinghuang said lightly, tonight's business is over. Wen Zhan was stunned, then bowed, yes, I will take my leave. The selected memorials on the desk were stacked in 3 rows, with the more urgent ones that needed to be approved immediately put together, and the important but not particularly urgent ones put aside. There were also some memorials for greetings, memorials for impeaching officials, and memorials for His Majesty to select the best candidates, which were placed aside separately, waiting for His Majesty to take time to read them slowly. After sorting them out and putting them on the imperial desk, Wen Zhan and Yun Hung bowed and took their leave. When he walked out of the imperial study, Wen Zhan looked up and saw Fu Kang walking quickly. Fu Kang also saw Wen Zhan. The air was slightly quiet, and then Fu Kang walked towards the imperial study without saying a word. Wen Zhan turned his head and looked at him, and suddenly understood why His Majesty asked them to go back so early. But when did Fu Kang come back? Master Wen, who is this? Yun Hung had never seen Fu Kang, so he naturally didn't know him. But when he saw that he didn't even report and stepped directly into the imperial study, he couldn't help but be surprised. Someone around His Majesty. The one His Majesty loves, Wen Zhan said with a faint smile, he is very skilled in martial arts, you can't afford to offend him. Yun Hung was silent. The one Her Majesty loves. So His Majesty already has a lover? He nodded slowly, and when they were far away, he said, young Master Wen was also a member of His Majesty's palace before. Wen Zhan's expression was calm, yes. According to the rules, young Master Wen and the other 4 should all have official positions, Yun Hung said, bowing slightly, I don't mean anything else, I just don't understand. If I'm offended, please forgive me, young Master Wen. It's okay, Wen Zhan waved his hand, not minding at all, the past things can't be explained in a few words, but there is one thing I can tell you, there is no love between us and His Majesty. His Majesty has never treated us as servants, and has never done anything that exceeds the difference between men and women, so you don't have to think too much about it. After a pause, he said, "No matter what the rumors outside are, you don't have to pay attention to them. When working with His Majesty, you only need to know what your responsibilities are, watch more, listen more, talk less, do your own job well, and don't get involved in other things." Yun Hung hummed, and he already knew in his heart that the rumors about the Queen before were all false. It has been almost a year since His Majesty ascended the throne, and it seems that she has not had any intimate behavior with any man. Well, he is not very clear about the previous things, but His Majesty has no one in the harem, and she is devoted to government affairs. The whole court is quite afraid of Her Majesty. And Her Majesty is very wise, decisive, and courageous. Yun Hung thought of his article and His Majesty's decision to send people to investigate the case, and his heart was slightly relieved. He might be lucky. Although Her Majesty is a woman, she has a broad mind, extraordinary courage, and a kind heart to do things for the people of the world, which makes people admire. Rumors are indeed not to be believed. Fu Kang closed the door and saw Yuan Bao standing next to Chu Qing Huang. He paused slightly and then saluted respectfully, "See Your Majesty." Yuan Bao raised his eyes slightly, and doubts appeared in his eyes. "Who is this person? He looks pretty good." "Yuan Bao," Chu Qing Huang said, "you go out first." Yuan Bao was silent, and let him go out again? Yes. As he bowed and left, Yuan Bao couldn't help wondering, why is His Majesty so mysterious tonight? First he was alone with the courtesan of Lanyu Pavilion, and now he is alone with this handsome man, which makes him almost unable to understand His Majesty's thoughts. Does His Majesty like men or women? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 400. With this question, Yuan Bao retreated obediently. Chu Qing Huang's eyes fell on Fu Kang's face, and there was a bit more warmth in his voice. "Are you still going to kneel?" Fu Kang raised the corners of his lips, stood up and walked over. "Master, are you tired?" Chu Qing Huang understood what he meant, tired. So Fu Kang walked up behind Chu Qing Huang without saying a word, and massaged her shoulders and neck with flexible and powerful fingers. "Although my subordinates are powerful in martial arts, I have always been dull in other aspects. I am not qualified to be a master. I have spent a lot of time studying in the past 6 months," Fu Kang said. His voice was low and soft, "making tea, music, and my subordinates are also not qualified, learned how to make wine. If this face can barely catch the eye of the master, it will be a blessing for the subordinate. Start talking love words to coax her again." Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows. "My father asked you to learn art, but all you learned was the art of serving others." "No." Fu Kang shook his head quickly, "I dare not miss my homework. My subordinate's understanding can barely satisfy the master, so the master can rest assured." "Satisfied?" Chu Qing Huang raised an eyebrow. "Father said he is satisfied." "That's not true." Fu Kang pursed his lips and told the truth. "Master doesn't like to praise others, but my subordinates can feel that he is quite satisfied. The days on the ledger are not increasing so fast, which proves that he has made relatively few mistakes recently, except—" Chu Qing Huang hummed, "Did father hit you?" Fu Kang's expression suddenly froze. Chu Qing Huang noticed something fishy and turned her head to look at him. "Why don't you say anything?" "Fighted." "Really?" Fu Kang nodded slightly. "Why did I hit you?" "At the beginning of June, my master allowed me to go down the mountain on the 8th day of the lunar month and assigned me a task. My subordinates were so happy. In the next 2 days, when I was competing with the masters on the mountain, I occasionally lost my focus and accidentally injured my shoulder and back. When masters compete, victory or defeat is often only a matter of seconds. The masters on Kangyun Mountain are all top-notch in martial arts. Even someone as skilled as Fu Kang needs to concentrate 120,000 points when dealing with a siege by many people. What's more, you can't use killing moves during sparring. He has also been learning another set of martial arts for most of the past 6 months. Being injured due to an oversight was not an accident, but this mistake was clearly unforgivable in the eyes of Master. So he got a beating. Chu Qing Huang was silent for a moment. I don't have enough concentration, so I really need to fight. We just meet each other, but how dare we be distracted during the competition? Fu Kang lowered his eyebrows and dared not speak. Early June, that just happened not long ago, Chu Qing Huang asked, is the injury healed? Fu Kang nodded, it's nothing serious. Master, don't worry. Where's the injury? Here Fu Kang pointed to the position behind his left shoulder, but it's fine. It's just a flesh injury, no bones, and no internal injuries. I asked where it was shot. Fu Kang. But. Fu Kang's face turned slightly red. Master. Chu Qing Huang didn't say anything. He raised his hand and gestured for Fu Kang to stand in front of him. Fu Kang did as he was told. Chu Qing Huang looked him up and down with calm eyes, which made Fu Kang blush and his heart beat. Finally, his eyes settled on the lower back of the young man's waist. Chu Qing Huang stretched out his hand and pointed at someone's waist. Lifting her hips, here. Fu Kang covered his buttocks and shook his head, no. Chu Qing Huang suppressed a smile, don't lie. Fu Kang froze. It was not a big deal for martial arts practitioners to be beaten and punished. He was punished every now and then when he was training in the Dark Pavilion. When he first arrived at the Princess Mansion, he was beaten frequently. After many times, he would not take the flesh wounds to heart at all. This is also the reason why the master always extends his training time without doing anything to him, because his fear of pain is not that deep. This time is an exception. It's just that this kind of thing that was originally commonplace now seems to be particularly blushing and heart-pounding under the master's meaningful eyes and tone. Fu Kang cleared his throat, the injuries have healed, master, don't worry. You have the final say whether you are cured or not. Chu Qing Huang stood up and said, follow me to the bedroom, and I will give you a good checkup. I'll start with a chapter to satisfy my cravings and continue in the afternoon. Dear friends, please remind me more. If the writing goes well today, I will add an update chapter for you. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article feed, placement, below article feed, target. Type, mix.